Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. And today's episode, this one's for the caregivers. This one's for the partners. This one's for the spouses. This one is for the family members. And what I mean by that is I want this episode to help be a bit of a resource for you in understanding some of the pieces that your loved one, partner, child, whatever it is, might be going through. And this comes up a lot where I get asked if I have a resource or something that someone could share with a family member on to help them understand. And I've been asked this enough that next year in 2025, we are building that thing. We are building a resource. We are still not completely certain how it's going to come together yet, but it's important that I think those that are a support system to our individuals on a healing journey have a resource, and for individuals on the healing journey to be able to give you something as the person that they care about in their life to say, can you listen to this to try to understand, so that they don't have to constantly be the one trying to explain it to you. So what I am going to say is, in building this project that we are planning to do in 2025, I've done a small focus group with individuals on a healing journey on some of the things that they would like you to know. But it's important to me to hear your views as well, because I am very aware that when someone has a concussion and they end up on a persistent journey, it 100% impacts and disrupts their life, but it also impacts your life as the partner, the husband, the wife, the caregiver, the children, whatever it is. Everybody's life gets impacted. It's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just, it is what it is. Dynamic shift, relationship shift, what someone can do and workload in a home or in a partnership shifts. And it has to, like that. It's not something that you get to get used to the idea of and ease into it. No, it happens like that. The blink of an eye. Change is hard for anybody, right? Like, change is not an easy thing. It challenges our comfort zone. It's not that it's a bad thing, but it's not an easy thing. But for many things in our lives that we choose to change, it is that word I just said, it is a choice for change, right? You can get used to the idea. You can make a plan. You can ease into it. Experiencing a concussion and developing persistent concussion symptoms is not a choice. It is something that instantly happens and changes the course of your life, can change the course of your life. And so while we are going to build this bigger project, I wanted to create something that, so the next time I get asked, do you have a resource that I could share with my loved one or my husband or my wife or whatever, that I had at least a podcast episode that I could say, here, maybe start with this. So I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit here, and I'm just going to say, I can appreciate that everybody is frustrated. If you are frustrated with the difficulties your partner is experiencing, imagine how frustrated they are. I promise you that if you're getting frustrated that they can't do the same things with you that they always used to do, that they can't help out around the house or with the kids as much as they used to be able to, that they don't get to go to work every day like they used to, if you're frustrated with that, I can promise you that your loved one who's on their healing journey is even more frustrated than that. That is an absolute given. And I think one of the hardest pieces, because this came up over and over again in our little focus group that we did, was that we're going to talk about a couple different things. The first one I'm going to talk about is everything is so much harder than it used to be. So let's talk about what's actually happening when we have a concussion, right? When we have a concussion, this isn't something that shows up on imaging. It's not something that shows up on like CTs or MRIs or CAT scans. It causes a disturbance and it disrupts the pathways in the brain. They're injured. So if we were to extrapolate this to like a regular, let's take it to a construction scenario, right? So say you're somebody that has your route that you like to leave your house every day to get to work, right? You go to your house, you always hang a right, you merge onto the highway, you boogie down the highway, You pull off and you're at work in 15 minutes. Smooth sailing always. That's what happens. So that is the regular pathway that your brain would take to do a task, say. And then you wake up one morning and you go and you merge onto the highway, and now you're in standstill traffic because there is a car accident. And now you have to take a detour. So you're taking a detour onto a smaller road that is less familiar, that is moving slower because there's more traffic, so it's not as efficient. You're getting frustrated because now you're going to be late for work, and you hit some bumps along the way, and your brand new car gets covered in dirt and it's filthy and it's all these things. And then you finally end up at work and it took you 45 minutes to get there instead of the usual 15. And your car looks a little worse for wear and it's a little dirty, and you're frustrated, and the day just hasn't started off the same. That's what's happening in someone's brain after a concussion. They've had a car accident, for lack of better terminology, in their brain that has disrupted the smooth sailing of the highways and how efficiently they can operate. And so now it's taking longer, it's more effort, it's more energy, and it gets depleted faster. So the task, something as simple to you and I as being able to jump out of bed in the morning, hop into the shower, have a shower, get ready, make our lunch, and head out the door. I hope that's not your morning routine, by the way. Different topic. But where that doesn't tax you, that can tax somebody with persistent concussion. And it means they need to go slower and take more time to do things and take breaks to recharge. So the other thing I like to talk about is this battery analogy. Okay. So when you go to sleep at night, right? We all go to sleep. Ideally, you have a refreshing sleep and you wake up and you have a fully charged battery. And that fully charged battery can be depleted with things like stress or course things that you're doing in the day. But someone who isn't on a healing journey, so someone like myself or you, if you're the partner listening to this, we wake up with a fully charged battery, and the task, like we just talked about, doesn't take as much of the battery as much because we're efficient in what we do, ideally. And so that battery gets us through the day. We don't need to plug it in to recharge it. Okay? Gets us through the day for the most part. Versus someone on a healing journey goes to sleep at night, and depending on if their sleep is something that has also been impacted from their concussion, because it can be in up to 70% of people, they wake up in the morning and their battery may not actually be fully charged. Might not have happened. And then, given what we just talked about how their brain has those longer pathways, it takes more energy to do a task. So whereas by lunchtime for you, you might have used a quarter of your battery tank, by lunchtime for someone on a persistent healing journey, they may have used half to 3/4 of their battery already. And so what's really important for the person is that now they have to pause and plug themselves in, literally speaking, to recharge. So what does plugging themselves in to recharge look like? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it means they're not jumping from task to task to task. Most people are very aware of the tools and the tasks that really do deplete their battery system. And so they have to plug in to recharge between. That recharge might look like doing some breathing exercises. That recharge might look like taking a nap. That recharge might look like just sitting and being in nature. There's so many different things, and there's different tools that work for different people to recharge. But the point of the matter, and the point that I want you to hear is our loved one's battery may not start out as full. It depletes faster, and they need to plug in to recharge to give themselves a boost, ultimately, to be able to continue throughout the day. The tricky part for everybody is that every day is different. How you feel depends on so many things. It depends on the amount of sleep you got. It depends on the other stressors and the other things happening in life. It depends on what appointments or tasks they have in the day, because a given appointment or task will recharge or refuel in different capacities. So while some days it might seem like someone is like on the, like, they're firing on all cylinders, and then the next day they are absolutely kaput. That can get confusing for you. Except it's important to know that every day is a little bit different, and that difference depends on the amount they've done in the week. It's a cumulative thing, as much as the amount they've done in the day, as much as what they are doing in the day and the week truly matters. Okay? That's definitely one of the biggest things that come up. I'm going to say where a lot of frustration I think I hear from my clients and from those on the healing journey. And I can see this from both sides, but it's the comparing. I'm going to give you an example here in a second. I think when someone who is a loved one says this sentence I'm going to say, I think they are trying to be empathetic. And I think that they are trying to be able to relate to something, to have that connection, to show support. Maybe not all the time, but I truly think, like, when I say this sentence and this comparison, because this is the one that grates on people, my friends, but I truly think that, at least initially, that that's where this is coming from, that this comparison is coming from that place of empathy and compassion and wanting to try to show compassion and connection. And that piece is when someone from a healing journey expresses their levels of fatigue they're feeling, and myself or someone on a partner goes, oh, I'm exhausted too. I could crash. I had such a long day. Now, this exact example is one that gets people's back up. And we need to look at this from a couple different ways. And then I'm going to offer you an alternative. So the loved one who's been like, I'm exhausted too. Oh my goodness, I totally hear you. I haven't stopped. Okay. Their experience for themselves is still real. So although they may not understand what it is to have experienced neurofatigue and what our clients are experiencing, their experience of exhaustion in their life, if they are feeling that, is still a valid and real experience for that person. And it is also not one to be ignored or just brushed under the rug. That being said, it is not the same as someone who is struggling with neurofatigue and such from a concussion. And it's the comparison piece, or the, oh, I get it, this is what I'm thinking, that ultimately really puts individuals back up who are on a healing journey. And I can say that because I've seen it over and over and over again. And I'm not saying it's every time, because, and I've said this before, we truly don't know and understand the experience of living with persistent symptoms if we haven't lived with it. We can empathize, but I don't know what it's like to have neurofatigue. I know what it's like in my space to be exhausted and feel like I'm going to collapse and I need to run into the ground. But that's my experience of exhaustion. That's not comparing to an individual with a healing journey. And so I think that question becomes, and this came up in our call that we did with my group that was just fantastic, is that instead of comparing, right? Instead of trying to compare to create that relatability with your partner, instead, be open and just be curious. Ask questions of each other and show empathy and compassion, but know that you don't have to experience it in the same way to do that. But be curious instead of feeling like you need to compare to create that relatability. One of the other things that comes up more than anything sometimes is just having that space that your loved one can melt down in, and just holding that space, but also creating that safe space that if they say to you, I just can't, that we don't ask them to go deeper and explain in that moment. Maybe later, if we truly don't understand and we want to understand why we can't, then we can come back to it. But in that moment, if they're just like, I just can't, maybe now's not the time. I've talked to clients before about the importance sometimes of just having a cue word or a safe word. And that word is basically the person with a healing journey needing to say it to tap out. It's just like, I'm done. I'm overwhelmed. My brain isn't functioning the way I want it to right now. And like, I just need space and time and I just need to tap out for a little bit. So that way, you've had this topic of curiosity previously of wanting to understand, of asking your partner, like, what do you feel like when you start to feel like it's too much? Like, what can that look like for you? How do you feel if I start to notice some of these things and you first bringing them to your attention? Because sometimes, to my lovely friends on a healing journey, we see things in you before you see them in yourself. And so asking your partner, for those of us that would be partners, saying, how do you feel about me bringing something to your attention if I'm noticing it looks like you're struggling before you've noticed it, right? How do you feel in your brain and your body when you feel like it's time to like step out or to get away or that you need to just like decompress, so that you can understand as best as you can what that looks like. And then maybe that word is pineapple. I don't know why I say pineapple, but I always end up saying pineapple for this one. And so that way, if you're out with friends or whatever it is, you could literally just put your hand on your partner's arm and just say pineapple. And then your partner, as in you, the loved one listening, can be the person to either help get you to a space if you need it, or to just simply go, and they can be the one to say to whoever you're with or whatever it is that you just need a moment. And maybe you need to go home or whatever it is, right? Maybe pineapple comes when you're having a discussion with each other and it's getting to be too much and it's too overwhelming. And so you just say pineapple, and that's the halt, which can be really challenging for some people, to get space to then reconvene at a later time and come back. So you can't leave things hanging in the air, but you need to come back. Okay, so code words, safe words, those sorts of things can be really helpful when you're trying to communicate without having to say a lot of words. Those are just a couple little snippets, right? And again, whenever I do these, I always want to recognize that, again, both your worlds have been changed drastically. And this is a time where communication becomes paramount in your relationship. And if communication is something that you have already struggled with in the past, it's going to make this period of time that much harder, full disclosure. And so also, if you find that you are struggling, this might be an opportunity to work with a relationship coach on tools to help you better communicate, right? You all know that I'm a huge fan of doing the things and doing the work ideally before you need it. And so relationship coaching is one of those things that I think can be incredibly powerful for a relationship at any level, whether you're already in a good place and you want to be in a better place, if you're in a struggling place, you're trying to get to a good place. But what happens so often, and that I see, is that the loved one wants to support and cares and loves their partner. And so they worry about them or they don't know how to help them. And so it just creates this blah. And then the loved one is already struggling and doesn't have the energy and the resources to explain. And then the other levels and layers of guilt that get factored in, of feeling like a burden, of feeling like they're not carrying their weight, of feeling like they're not being the parent or the partner they know they wanted to be and that they think you deserve to be or do you deserve to have. These are all things that start to come up. They're not small things. Major change when you had no way or were even looking to create this type of change that happened without your choice in an instant is a massive thing. And that thing can be looked at as here's a way for us to learn some new skills, to come together to support each other. Because what I will tell you is there needs to be adaptability to come through this thriving. It's a partnership and it remains a partnership, but how that partnership is going to function might look different. I would love, if you are a loved one listening to this, and you would like to be part of a small focus group of other partners to work through some questions with me and ask me questions, I would love for you to send me an email. Like I said, we are putting together a more formal resource in 2025 for individuals, partners, caregivers, all those things. And it's insanely important to me that I have input from both parties, both groups, to build this, because we can continue and we will continue to be our best and create our best when we are open to learning and listening to both sides. And we are open and being present to everyone's experiences. Okay, my friends, I hope this was helpful for you. I hope this is something that if you're someone on a healing journey listening to this, you can share with someone. We have so many different tools that we utilize in helping, but this is just a little snippet for you and like a little thing that you can just send someone and they have a quick 20 some odd minutes to listen to it and at least have a little bit more insight. Wishing you an amazing day. Until next week. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.